Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to the channel. I am here today with my February 2020 media wrap-up. So I'm going to talk about one movie, one TV series that we watched, and then 6 books that I read in the month of February. So let's just dive right in. So the first thing I want to talk about is a TV series that my wife and I have been watching for the past, 3-4 months now. But we finally made it through the entire series at the end of February, and that is Boy Meets World on Disney+. So I do own this series on DVD, but it's just easier to watch it streaming, and so we ended up watching this on Disney+. Of course, we signed up for that when it began, and so we watched it on there. Now, this is such an interesting series because I loved this when I was a kid. I always used to look forward to it on TGIF, one of my favorites growing up, and I was really excited to kind of watch through this again. So the first 3 seasons of this show are excellent. I think they teach a lesson, but they do it in a much less melodramatic way than something like Full House, which is another show from my childhood that I absolutely adore. But you can't deny that the melodrama of Full House is a bit ridiculous, but it's still fun to watch. I still love it. So with Boy Meets World, for the first 3 seasons, I was just talking to my wife about how great it was because of the fact that they do have these lessons in there, but it's nothing like some other shows do it. They handle it really well. And I really appreciated that about it. And then the 4th season hits, more specifically, like the middle of the 4th season, which has one of the most ridiculous bad episodes of the series, and that is it's one with there's a speeding ticket involved. I don't know if you know the series, you'll probably know what I'm talking about, but it was just so bad. And then it gets worse from there. Like at one point, like a couple episodes later, Sean's like joining the mafia or the mob or something. Like it's ridiculous. It's so bad. And it just keeps getting worse from the middle of season 4 on. And then there's the time jump at the end of season 4. They skip a year, I believe. And so then they're seniors in season 5. And then season 6 and 7 are when they're in college. I could be wrong. I think that's right though. So after the time jump, it doesn't get any better. And honestly, like I was just so ready for the show to be done. It was really great for about 3.5 seasons. I'd give it probably 4.5 stars. And then once the middle of season 4 hits, and then we get the time jump after 5, 6, and 7, it just really goes downhill. The selfishness of the main characters, like Corey just becomes the most selfish son of a bitch I've ever encountered in my entire life. I really started despising his character as the series went on. First, it was Sean toward the beginning of the series, but Corey was always there to kind of reel him back in. In the second half, it's Corey, but there's nobody there to reel him back in. And things just kept going his way. So even though he was selfish, he was still rewarded for it. It was as if he was right to be selfish. It was as if he was right to be this incredible pain in the ass to every single person around him. And I really disliked it. The parents, like, there's a point where Topanga and Corey are literally living in the house that's falling apart. Or no, at this point, they have nowhere to live. And the parents won't even let them, like, stay the night there for a week or whatever while they're trying to find a new place. Like, they just say, figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's... I can't speak for everyone, but for my family, that would never be the situation. My family would never turn us away if we needed help. And the worst part was, not only do they not take them in, which, I can kind of get that a little bit, but they don't even offer any advice. The dad just says, figure it out. And he says it multiple times. Oh, it was so aggravating. I just couldn't. Oh, the second half of that series just pissed me off so much. I was so glad for it to be done. It's really hard to give that series a rating. Overall, I probably have to give it like 2.5 stars because the first half is excellent. The second half is garbage. And I don't know. Like, even though it is garbage at a lot of points in the second half, I still laughed a lot during it. Eric, Corey's brother, he's a funny guy. He's hilarious. I love the interactions with Feeney. Oh, and that was the other problem, is just the consistency amongst the characters. It's just, I know, I understand. I was binging this, right? We were watching in a very short amount of time the entire series. So we were to pick up on things that maybe if you were a writer of the show, you don't remember what you wrote 4 seasons ago. I understand that, but still, some of the inconsistencies that we saw throughout it was just so annoying to me. Boy Meets World did not live up to what I remembered it being when I was a kid. Would I recommend it? yes, if you love the show as a youngster, give it another shot. You'll probably enjoy the first 3 seasons, but once you start finding out that, or once you start feeling annoyed by it, then probably just stop, because it's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse as the series continues. But yeah, so I have to give Boy Meets World 2.5 out of 5 stars. Keep it right in the middle, just because, like I said, part was great, part was bad. So it is what it is. So the only film I watched in February was Jurassic Park from 1993, directed by, of course, Steven Spielberg. So I did do a complete book versus movie episode on the book, which I also read. So jumping into the next one, kind of tying these two together. I read the book as well, written by Michael Crichton from 1990, and then watched the film right afterwards from 1993. And in my book versus movie episode, I won't spoil which one I preferred more, but just know that I really liked them both, and I think they're both worth consuming. If you've only been one that's seen the film like me, I definitely think the book is absolutely worth your time, because there's a lot more to it, and a lot of different things to it than they have in the film. If you're somebody who has only read the book and not seen the movie, you're missing out, because this is a fantastic film. So I gave the film 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I gave the book 4.5 out of 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed them both. So check out my book versus movie episode on Jurassic Park to see which one I preferred more. I should also mention that I read Jurassic Park via audiobook thanks to Audible. But moving on to my second book of February, this is actually book 2, but I read The Wicked and the Divine book 1. I had to take it back to the library because that's where I borrowed it from, but this is the hardcover deluxe edition of book 2, and book 1 looks identical. It just has a number 1 here instead of a number 2. That's like the only difference on the outside. So I loved this. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars as well. I have a complete review of Wicked and the Divine Book 1 on the channel. So if you've missed that, definitely check it out. It is a completely spoiler-free review. So if you're worried about spoilers, you can still watch that review and not have to worry about any of those spoilers. So check that out if you haven't. This is a book, as the back says, every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people, and then, they're treated as celebrities, so some people love them, some people hate them, and then, after 2 years, they're dead. So, it's a very interesting story. It's told really well. There are some confusing issues kind of midway through the first book, but man, once you get to the end, it's just, man, you got to get book 2. So I had book 2. I had to reserve it for my library as soon as I finished book 1, and I finally got it in. So that is one that I am going to start very soon, because it's due back in just a handful of days now. So I have to read through this before I return it. But I loved Wicked and the Divine book 1. And if you have not seen that review, check it out so you have more of my not deeper, I always say deeper, but more elaborate thoughts right there. Next up is another graphic novel, and this is Harrow County Volume 1, and this is called Haints. Countless Haints, excuse me. Haints. I think it's just another word for haunts, because that's how it was always referred to in the book. But anyway, I don't really know why I picked this one up. I think I was going through like a list of scariest graphic novels or something along those lines, and this one was one that was referenced. And so I decided to borrow it again from my library, and I read through it all in one day. It's a very quick read. It's a story so it takes place obviously in Harrow County, and there is at the beginning, a witch that is burned. Well, she basically spawns a young child that is then raised until she's like, I think her 13th birthday, where then she's considered, a woman at that point, I guess. And so the county wants to, or the people of the town decide that they need to destroy her. So it's just her trying to not get destroyed, basically. I was really disappointed with this one. I should mention that this is written by Cullen Bunn and art by Tyler Crook, I believe. So this is not... what to say? Like, some of the art in this was truly horrifying. Like, there was just some really good, scary artwork in it. Like, for example, this scene is just fantastic. And this was, like, genuinely unsettling to me. It was so well drawn. But I just realized, like, that's really cool. Like, in the top corner up here, it actually says Harrow County. That's awesome. I didn't notice that as I was reading. But the story itself is pretty lackluster. Not a whole heck of a lot happens during this first volume, which I know it's only the first volume, so it's only like this one was the first 4 issues, I believe. So, I don't know. I have no interest in continuing the series. I think aside from some art that was genuinely moving in a scary way, it didn't really do much for me at all. I kind of found it not boring, just, I don't know, there was not a lot of substance to it like I was hoping. And so, I don't know, I just didn't enjoy this one. So if you are interested in this one, you can get it probably from your library. This is really the only way I'd recommend it, just to see if you like it. But this was from 2015, Harrow County, Volume 1, Countless Haints. I'd like to know what you thought about it if you have read this down in the comments below. All right, moving from graphic novels over to some books, and the first one is quite a big chunky one. So I read Stephen King's The Stand, and I do own this one in the physical form, but I did finish this one on audiobook thanks to the version I own on Audible. So this was originally released in 1978, but then the complete and uncut edition was released in 1990, and that is the version of the audiobook that I read and the version of the physical book that I own. So this is basically the story of a plague taking out like 99% of the population, and we follow groups of survivors, people that were basically immune to the virus that swept the country, this flu-like virus that swept the country, and basically just watching how they survive, and if they survive, and kind of them trying to rebuild life as they knew it. That's really it, what the story is about. There's obviously so much more to it. The Dark Man is introduced in this book, which I believe, from what I've read, he actually is like the main bad guy from the Dark Tower series as well. So I'm not too terribly interested in reading that, but I probably will at some point, at least try the first book to see if I like it. But yeah, this one is good. I actually have a video review written, so that will be up hopefully Thursday of the week of this video being released. So just a few days from now after this video was released. So check that out once that is live. I won't say too much about it now just because all my thoughts will be there. I will mention though that I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it. It is incredibly long, and you feel the length. You definitely feel the length of it. But, if you are interested in any kind of apocalyptic novels like this or outbreak novels, I think this is really, really well done. I really feel like this is kind of one of those blueprint novels that we see a lot of other things, more recent books or movies, television programs, using a lot of the ideas that Stephen King creates in The Stand. So it is definitely, a classic in the genre and absolutely worth the time. But it does take dedication to finish this thing, because it is let's see how many, it's like a 1,500 or 1,100 and around 30 pages in the book here. And it is just shy of 49 hours in the audiobook. So it takes some work to get through it, but I'm glad that I can now say that I have completed The Stand, because, I enjoyed it, and it's just one of those classics that everyone should give a shot if they like the horror genre. So, and, really this is kind of more horror / fantasy, I guess, but either way, it's worth it if you are interested in the premise of this at least. So I gave The Stand, like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. From a real super thick one to a real super thin one. This was the one of the only physical novels I read during the month. This is R.L. Stine's The Babysitter 4, and this wraps up and concludes the Babysitter series, which I started at the end of 2019, and really wanted to get through and get 4 reviews out of this series so that I have the entire series reviewed on Cinefessions.com, which I am happy to say I do have that. So definitely check out Cinefessions.com. Just search Babysitter and you'll find all 4 of my reviews for this entire series. So I'm not going to give any spoilers here. This takes place 1 year after The Babysitter 3. Jenny is, back home basically, and they decided to move. So she's in a new place. She has neighbors that happen to have kids. Even though she doesn't want to take a babysitting job, the mom leaves one day and says, hey, or she doesn't leave. She comes over one day and says, hey, can you watch my kids for like 15 minutes? I have to go to the grocery store. And Jenny's like, okay, because she doesn't want to be rude. So she says yes. I mean, what can possibly go wrong in 15 minutes, right? So she agrees to do it. And then this book just goes in a much different path than the rest of the Babysitter series. I really loved where it was going in the beginning. And then it really is a book that could have used another 50 pages to kind of let the ending build a little bit more. It just rushes the ending, and makes the whole thing seem pointless. I don't recommend the book. Definitely not if you've not read the rest of the series. But, if you have read Babysitter 1 through 3, you might as well read this one just to finish it up. I gave this one 2 out of 4 stars. I didn't mention, I believe this one was released in 1995, I believe. Yeah, 1995. But 2 out of 5 stars. Not great. Not the worst thing ever, of course. I really like Stein's writing style. I enjoy him as an author. He's one of my favorites, but this one was quite a letdown when it got to the end. So because of that, it really kind of put a damper on the whole journey there. So again, I don't recommend it terribly, but if you've read the rest of them, you might as well wrap it up with the Babysitter 4. So Babysitter 4 from 1995, I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. Next up is a book I was really excited to read. I believe this was actually on my 5-star predictions list, and it was Andy Weir's The Martian. And the reason I put this on my 5-star prediction list was because I've seen the movie already, and I loved the film. I think it's fantastic. The book is very true. I'm sorry, I should say the film is very true to the book. But that said, I think this is one where you can still read the book and get a lot out of it, even if you've already seen the film. I disagree with those that told me beforehand that, if you've seen the film, you don't really need the book. There's not much more there. I disagree. I think there is quite a bit more in the book than there is the film. That said, what else is here, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't get me wrong. I liked the book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. So I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I was hoping. Obviously, being in my 5-star prediction video, I really thought I was going to love it, but I didn't. There is so much kind of science in this that it almost feels like the book gets bogged down in the science of it a little bit. I'm in the minority, I guess is what I should be saying, in that I think the science of it is a little bit too much, because it has a wide appeal, it has mass appeal. So clearly I'm in the minority there. But that said, I'm not sure how it has such mass appeal. It's probably because of the film, frankly. Because the film, though it has a lot of science in it, it seems less nerdy, I guess, than the book, which I'm all about nerdy, but this one, it just got boring at points. He just was spouting off so much science that meant absolutely nothing to me because I don't know what any of the things he was talking about mean or what they represent, anything like that. It went all over my head. And, because of that, I was just getting a little bored with some of it because they spend so much time building up those details, which I just don't think was necessary. But outside of the science, the character is fantastic. I really love our main character, the Martian, in this book. He's funny. He's very charismatic, and he's just enjoyable to kind of watch try to survive. One thing that I thought was a little disappointing, or just a choice that they make, is that we are watching journal entries after the fact. So if he is making a journal entry after something happened, or he makes a journal entry saying, hey, I'm going to try this, but then he comes back, it's like, well, obviously he succeeded because he's here making a journal entry. So any tension that's built up, to me, it was kind of lost because I already know if he's about to tell a story, I did this, and then this was the risk, but I survived. Well, obviously he survives because he's writing this journal or he's doing the video entry, whatever the case may be. So obviously he survived. But so a lot of the tension was lost on me. There was some toward the end, and honestly, I didn't remember from the book, because obviously the entire premise of this is he going to live or is he going to die? Is he going to make it off or not? That's the entire premise or the entire driving force behind the book and the movie. And I honestly could not remember if, he survived or did not from when I watched the movie. So, and I'm not going to say it here, obviously, but because of that, the tension, there was a little bit of tension at the end, just as things kind of picked up and got more dangerous. And so I liked that, but getting there, I thought was just a little bit, I don't even want to say boring. It was just a little bit slower than I would have liked, I guess, because we get lost in a lot of those details that meant absolutely nothing to me. But like I said, I'm in the minority there because everybody loves this book. I didn't realize that this actually started off as Andy Weir posted this as like blog posts on his website, so you could access it for free on his website. And then eventually it was self-published on Amazon. And then, of course, obviously now we are here. It's a very well-known book. It has an entire feature film starring Matt Damon, which is excellent. So I am considering doing a book versus movie on this, but honestly, it's been a number of weeks now since I finished this, and I've read so much stuff in between then. I think I'm kind of just, this is as much as you're going to get from The Martian for me. But yeah, so like I said, good book. everybody loves it. So if it's something that the premise sounds interesting, which I guess the premise is, our main character, whose name is just escaping me right now, Mark, gets, left behind basically on Mars on one of his missions because there is a storm that is brewing, and his crew thinks he's dead. And so he's left behind, but it turns out he's alive, and he is now on Mars trying to survive. And so it's just a matter of him trying to survive, and what he has all, limited resources, and how will he make the most of those. Good book. Not my favorite, that's for sure. So I gave this one 3.5 out of 5 stars, and I much preferred the film to the book. So hopefully if you've read this, please, again, let me know. Did you like this a lot more than I did? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to have more of a conversation with you guys down there about it. So the last book on my wrap up I'm going to talk about was one that was actually on my March TBR. So I did this last time. I had a book on my February TBR that I actually ended up reading at the end of January. So it was in my January wrap up. But this one I got through in one day, which I was not expecting at all. I did this one via audiobook, thanks to the version I own on Chirp Books. And this is Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. And the reason I read this one was because another YouTuber has asked me to submit like a real short review on one of my favorite horror books, or just a horror book that I recommend. And so I decided to go, instead of scary, I went with disturbing. And Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door is, without a shadow of the doubt, the most disturbing book I have ever read. This, American Psycho is one that always gets touted as being disturbing, and that one was, but for me, given who the characters that we're dealing with here, which are children, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever read. This is one of my very first rereads also, I should point out. I read this one a decade ago when I was in grad school, and it had an impact on me then, but nothing like it had on me now. So, like I'd said, I did this all in one day, and I think it was more because I couldn't spend another day. I couldn't sleep on this town, on this house where everything takes place, and then wake up and visit it again the next day, because it's just so messed up. So basically the premise of this is, so the main character is basically kind of trying to expunge himself or tell his story. Our main character has best friends that live next door to him. There's 3 boys that live in that house with a single mother. They have their 2 cousins, who are their 2 female cousins. One I think is 14, that's Meg, and then one's younger, Susan. They move in with them after their parents die in a car accident. Well, have this woman, the matriarch of that household, just doesn't get along with Meg. Clearly has some mental issues that she's dealing with, and just a lot of issues, a whole host of issues that she's dealing with, and she takes it out on Meg. And eventually things just escalate to a level that you would never expect. And it is a story of torture. It is a story of incest, of rape, of every terrible thing you can think of, is included in this book in one way or another. And it is just, it is incredibly graphic. It is a messed up book. The audiobook, so I read the physical book the first time, and I wanted to read the audiobook this time, or, listen to the audiobook this time, and I did that, and it's narrated by Jack Ketchum, who, rest his soul, he just passed just a number of years ago, not too terribly long ago now. And he was an awesome guy. I met him at a convention, a couple conventions that I went to, a couple horror conventions. And he was always such a nice guy. I loved when he did his readings, at the conventions, because he read some of his stuff, and it was just awesome. He did such a great job. With The Girl Next Door, I think he does a good job. There are some moments that kind of the emotion is lost, which is really surprising given that it was the author that was reading it. But, I think he's a better author than he is an actor, but it is what it is. I think he does a great job with it nonetheless. Who do I recommend this for? I mean, almost nobody, unless you are specifically looking for a book that is going to disturb you. Reading this now as a father of an 18-month-old, and just in a different place in my life than I was 10 years ago, the effect it had on me was so much more profound than it did when I first read it. I don't think I will ever read this again, just because I don't know if I want to put myself through that again. I don't know what else to say other than disturbing. It is a haunting story of escalation, just the terror of what can go on when people that can do something choose not to. And just how easily children can be manipulated by those that they look up to as being a disciplinarian or someone in power. How easy it is to manipulate them. Man, this book, again, research it before you decide to read it to make sure that it's something that you're going to be able to get through. There are, like I said, a ton of different trigger warnings in this, including incest, rape, torture, everything along those lines. So definitely check this out. Research it before you do. But if it is something that you are looking specifically just to see if you can handle it, then check out Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. I will say it's written incredibly well. Ketchum has such a way with words that I think it's done so well. So, you know, if you can deal with the nastiness of this, then I think his writing style makes it worth it. So Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And like I said, I read this one via audiobook thanks to the version I own on Chirp Books. All right, so that is going to do it for all of the books and movies that I consumed in the month of January. It was a little less than last month, but mostly because of this guy here, The Stand. Like, it's so damn long, so I didn't get a ton of audiobooks in, but I'm already doing really well for March, so I'll have even more to talk about at the end of March, I'm sure. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please, as always, consider subscribing to Cinefessions here on YouTube, and if not, thank you anyway for watching. I really appreciate it. What did you guys read in the month of February? What did you watch in the month of February? Please let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to have a deeper conversation with you guys down there. All right, so I want to say thank you to everyone for watching, and I'll catch you next time.